Copycat Killer becomes first Taiwanese show on Netflix top list. Leg lengthening surgery is gaining popularity in US. Olive oil set for 2 years of price hikes and shortages. Google CEO Sundar Pichai made $226 million last year. Italy wants to be the first country to ban cultivated meat. Japan. Manga to spearhead nation's economic growth. China distances itself from envoy remarks on ex-Soviet states. UK's most eligible bachelor is off the market.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It's Tuesday, April 25th, and here are your top stories. Taiwan News, an English news media outlet, reported the detective fiction series Copycat Killer became the first Taiwanese Netflix production to be listed at the number 2 position on the platform's non-English rankings. Producer Phil Tan has dubbed the show in more than 30 languages as the series has entered the markets in Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and South America. Tan said that he was most surprised by the show's popularity in Middle Eastern countries such as Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia.
Tang said when he traveled to Dubai in 2022, he found that locals were watching South Korean dramas and that made him think, we, Taiwan, also have to open up our imagination to the global market. The thriller, which premiered in March, is adapted from an award-winning novel by Miyuki Miyabe. It is set in the 1990s in Taiwan and follows prosecutor Kuo, starring Wukong Ren, as he finds himself tangled in a game of cat and mouse with a serial killer called No.
Limb lengthening surgery is a procedure which makes an arm or a leg bone longer. The surgery costs thousands of dollars and can be an intense process. However, it has become popular and accepted in the last 5 years in the U.S. among men. A surgeon at the Height Lengthening Institute in Burbank, California, Dr. Shahab Merbobian, said he expects to perform 50 height lengthening operations this year, more than double the 20 operations he did 3 years ago, because the short jokes keep going on and they feel inferior.
The doctor said limb lengthening is done as a gradual process so that the bones and soft tissue can slowly increase in length. During the surgery, doctors cut the bone to create 2 different segments and an orthopedic lengthening device is inserted into the bone. According to the International Center for Limb Lengthening, the process typically takes several months. After the surgery, the bones begin the healing process. And then the patient will adjust the orthopedic device so that it slowly pulls apart the 2 bone segments.
According to the International Olive Council, after Spain, the world's largest olive oil producer, produced just half its normal quantity of oil, almost half the olive oils available in the big 4 retailers became more expensive in March. Olive oil prices have leapt by a third in the last month. Economists at the British Retail Consortium, Javier Delon, said retailer supply chains continue to be under pressure from extreme weather conditions, inflation, and labor shortages.
Filippo Barrio UK CEO Walter Zanre said the weather in Spain has remained adverse for next year's crop with very little winter rain and an early summer. He said, I think we're faced with another very difficult year going into next year. We don't see any respite on the horizon. This means shoppers are likely to see price increases well into 2024. He said, there is no question that climate change has hit us. I can't see the weather situation in southern Spain and southern Italy changing over the next few years.
The CEO of Google and Google's parent company Alphabet, Sundar Pichai, made nearly $226 million in 2022. According to a new filming from Alphabet, the majority of the pay come from stock holdings, valued at more than $218 million. The rest of the compensation came from a $2 million base salary and more than $5 million for a private security detail. CNN said Pichai made just over $6 million in 2021 and $7.4 million in 2020. Pichai's stock boosts come every 3 years. In 2019, he received a similar package of $281 million.
According to CNN, other top executives in Google also received healthy paychecks in 2022. Prabhakar Raghavan, Senior Vice President of Knowledge and Information at Google, and Philip Schindler, Google's Chief Business Officer, each made $37 million. Google and Alphabet's CFO Ruth Porat and Kent Walker, Chief Legal Officer, both made about $24.5 million. Previous research found pay for top executives has skyrocketed by 1,460% since 1978, and more than 80% of their pay is typically stock-related.
I always needed time on my own. I never thought I'd be here.
I take your blessings with your heartaches too. It's so easy and so wonderful to know it's you.
学习，一切从今天开始。Funday 英语。
The new Italian government under far-right leader Giorgia Meloni has raised the specter of a threat to traditional food values by proposing the world's first-ever national ban on the production and marketing of cultivated meat. Cultivated meat is grown from stem cells in a bioreactor. The government is considering using insects as an alternative source of protein instead. The draft law, which aims to prevent non-conventional food from appearing on Italian tables, suggests a fine of up to $65,000 for violations by retailers or producers.
Prodotti da laboratorio non garantiscono, a nostro avviso, qualità, non garantiscono benessere.
Upon introducing the bill to the Senate on March 27, Francesco Lollobrigida, the country's agriculture and food sovereignty minister, suggested that so-called synthetic foods were a threat to small food producers, the environment, Italian food culture, and even human health. But an alternative protein advocacy group said, the passing of such a law would shut down the economic potential of this nascent field in Italy, holding back scientific progress and climate mitigation efforts, and limiting consumer choice.
With the year-on-year sales of Japanese manga comics in the U.S. up by 171% in 2021, the Japan Business Federation, Kodoran, has called on the government to promote manga, anime, and games as the spearhead of the nation's broader economic growth. Earlier this month, the Business Federation released a proposal for the government to focus on the content industry, which also includes anime, live-action films, television programs, computer games, and music as key exports.
The proposal called on the government to set up an agency dedicated to promoting the contents industry overseas, for measures to promote industry experts from abroad to come to Japan to work, and to link with the tourism sector to help foreign fans of manga and anime visit sites across the country associated with particular manga stories. The aim is to quadruple sales of Japanese content in overseas markets, from approximately 5 trillion yen at present, within 10 years.
China sought to distance itself from remarks by its envoy to France questioning the independence of ex-Soviet states that sparked a firestorm in Europe. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning said earlier on Monday at a regular press briefing in Beijing, China respects the status of the former Soviet republics as sovereign countries after the Soviet Union's dissolution. China's embassy in Paris said in a statement in French on its website that China's position hasn't changed.
The Chinese embassy in Paris said in a statement the comments by its ambassador Liu She on LCI television were not a political declaration but rather an expression of personal points of view. Liu told the broadcaster in an interview aired last Friday that former Soviet nations don't have sovereign status as independent countries, a statement that ignored internationally recognized borders and caused anger in Europe. A French foreign ministry official told Liu in a meeting Monday that the comments were unacceptable.
Britain's most eligible bachelor is officially off the market after the Duke of Westminster announced his engagement. Hugh Grosvenor, 32, proposed to Olivia Hanson, 30, at his family seat in Cheshire last weekend. The Duke is one of the youngest billionaires in Britain, with an estimated net worth of almost £10 billion. At the heart of his inherited fortune is a property portfolio that includes 300 acres in two of London's most expensive neighborhoods, Mayfair and Belgravia.
A spokesman for the Grosvenor family said in a statement on Sunday, the Duke of Westminster and Miss Olivia Henson are delighted to announce they are engaged to be married. Known as Hughie, the Duke is a close friend of the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Kate, and a godfather to their son Prince George. Miss Henson works for Bilazou, a London-based business specializing in products from around the Mediterranean, such as Spanish olive oil stocked in Waitrose.
Let's take a look at the vocabulary today from the news of Copycat Killer. Number 1, outlet. 感情、思想、精力发泄的出路、表现机会. She needed to find an outlet for her many talents and interests. Number 2, ranking. 地位、排名、排位，有指体育运动. She has retained her #1 world ranking. Number 3, dub. 为影片或电视节目配音. It was dubbed into Spanish for Mexican audiences. And that's all for today's Funday News. Make sure you tune into Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I'll see you next time.